The accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial, and be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. The Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Every step of the way, we've heard John Ashcroft tell the public, trust us, we're the government. And yet he refuses to release important information that the public needs in order to understand what's at stake.
Government claims of secrecy can rightfully be viewed with suspicion.
And the secret, as we have learned in history, generally, they're hiding their lack of evidence. Korematsu is a perfect example. Korematsu was when the Japanese were interned based on the government's allegation that these people were dangerous and had to be put in internment camps indefinitely until the war was over. Subsequently, after the war, everybody now knows that the information that the government gave to the court was false. They misled the court on purpose. And the rest of the information, of course, they said is secret. And the secret was, we don't have anything.
In 1953, at the height of the Cold War, the government also misled the Supreme Court in the case of U.S. versus Reynolds. That ruling established the government's right to secrecy if it jeopardized national security. But the Los Angeles Times recently revealed that the government used the national security claim to hide the truth about the Air Force's poor maintenance of a B-29 bomber that crashed, killing 9 people. The national security claim was a lie.
There's a legacy of abuse of these very kinds of powers. We went through the civil rights movement where the FBI and the CIA were investigating the civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King, the anti-war protesters, people who were perceived to be the political enemies of the government. This same authority is now vested in the Justice Department by the Patriot Act, and that's a dangerous situation for Americans.
I can't confirm or deny who our client is. I can't confirm or deny some of the arguments that we've made in our legal papers. I can't even talk about the basic facts about what has led the government to try to seal this lawsuit from public review and from public scrutiny. I can't talk about why the government insists that it jeopardizes national security.
The ACLU has challenged some of the unconstitutional clauses present in the Patriot Act, but they have been gagged from even telling the American public what is going on.
Even as the president has made the Patriot Act one of the cornerstones of his re-election campaign, we can't tell the public about the circumstances and facts of our lawsuit challenging a portion of the Patriot Act's constitutionality.
I think that the world is going to be more peaceful and free. Result of this discussion, our fellow citizens have a better understanding of the importance of the Patriot Act and why it needs to be renewed and expanded. The importance of the Patriot Act when it comes to defending America, our liberties, and at the same time that it still protects our liberties under the Constitution.
The public needs to have the facts as it makes its decisions about whether or not the Patriot Act went too far.
The ACLU is not the only organization that has been silenced by the Patriot Act.
If librarians have been approached by the FBI, they of course can't tell you that, because one of the rules in the Patriot Act is that you can't tell, which is terrifying, really.
What it allows the government to do is to come in and subpoena your customer records to find out what books have been checked out or what books they bought. It doesn't allow the bookstore to contact a lawyer to fight it. It's all done through foreign intelligence surveillance court, and doesn't give us an opportunity to stand up for our customers.
At least when you get a subpoena from a local court, because there's reasonable cause to suspect that someone has broken the law and their library records would contribute to the investigation. That's what the law used to be. At least you could tell anybody that you had responded to the subpoena.
And they don't even need reasonable suspicion to obtain records on you. Employment records, medical records, and even banking records.
The government has deputized the banking industry to spy on American consumers. What we see is the possibility that banks, in doing their policing duty for the government, are going to be looking at who we are, finding out more information than they ought to. It's a very profitable place for them because they get to sell information about us. You just wonder, are you giving the wrong people too much authority?
Government agents can now check on who you are sending email to, who you are getting email from, and what websites you visit by claiming it is relevant to an investigation.
It requires no showing that the individual whose records are being sought actually engaged in or had any connection to any kind of terrorist conduct. So it basically makes all of us vulnerable.
When you look at the Patriot Act, you're struck by the fact that many of its provisions are not limited to fighting terrorism. They affect federal criminal law and procedure generally.
Most Americans believe that the Patriot Act was focused on the war on terror, and yet they're surprised to find that there are portions of the Patriot Act that have nothing to do with the war on terror. In fact, there's one section of the Patriot Act that allows the government to conduct delayed notice searches, what we call sneak and peek searches.
Sneak and peek warrants are when the FBI wants to search your property and even remove possessions, and the Justice Department can delay notifying you. So you can think for weeks, even months, that you've been victimized by a burglar when really the Justice Department has sent its agents into your home.
It gives the government the power to get warrants for secret searches of homes and secret wiretaps of phones without any showing of probable cause that an individual has engaged in criminal activity, which is the usual constitutional minimum required.
These Patriot Act powers are being used on ordinary petty crimes, on drug enforcement, on crimes that have had nothing to do with terrorism or the terrorist attacks of September 11th. What much of the American public doesn't fully understand is that the USA Patriot Act creates permanent changes to our nation's laws. More than 90% of the Patriot Act will remain as permanent law unless and until we change it.
The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.